Have you ever wondered why habits are so hard to break? Or why they even form in the first place? Welcome to the Agora and Agoj endeavor, my dear pupils. Habits are like the invisible architects of our lives, quietly shaping our actions and ultimately our destinies. Think about it, the way you brush your teeth, the route you take to work, your nightly scroll through social media, these are all habits. Seemingly trivial, but they dictate the rhythm of our lives. And it's not just about these mundane routines. Habits extend to our thinking patterns, our reactions, and even our basic life choices. That's right, from the way you tie your shoelaces to the way you handle stress. It's all a matter of habit. Now let's talk about the influence of habits. They're like the invisible threads that weave the tapestry of our lives. They can be our greatest allies or our worst enemies, depending on their nature. Good habits can greatly increase our productivity and quality of life in general. Examples of these include regular exercise and mindful budgeting. They resemble well-greased cogs in the apparatus of achievement. On the other hand, bad habits like procrastination or excessive caffeine consumption can pull us down into a spiral of inefficiency and stagnation. They are like rust eating away at our potential. But here's the fascinating part. Habits are not set in stone. They are malleable, changeable. They can be broken, reshaped, and newly formed. We are not their prisoners, but their creators. Habits, in their essence, are just repeated behaviors etched into our neural pathways. They are not our destiny, but our tools. They are our servants, not our masters. The key is to understand them, to learn their language, to decipher their codes. So why do we need to understand habits? Due to their strength. They are the silent manipulators who control our existence. However, if we comprehend them, we can take control and direct them to better serve us and build the life we really want. Understanding habits and how they form is the first step towards harnessing their power. Let's explore the science of how our brains establish and maintain habits. Habit formation is not just a psychological phenomenon, it's a biological one too. To understand habit formation, imagine a three-part cycle known as the habit loop. This cycle consists of a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is a trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. The routine can be physical, mental, or emotional. The reward helps your brain figure out if this particular loop is worth remembering for the future. Let's break this down a bit further. Suppose you have a habit of drinking a cup of coffee every morning. The cue might be waking up, the routine is the process of making and drinking the coffee, and the reward could be the burst of energy you get from the caffeine. This cycle, repeated over time, forms a habit. Now, what's fascinating is the part of the brain that's responsible for this process. It's called the basal ganglia. This tiny, ancient part of our brains is where habits live. The basal ganglia is all about patterns and routines. It's like the brain's autopilot. When you first perform a new action, your brain has to work hard to process all the new information. But as you repeat the action, the basal ganglia takes over, and the action becomes automatic. The more you repeat the action, the stronger the habit becomes. This is why established habits are so hard to break. But there's a silver lining here. Because habits are formed through repetition, we can also break bad habits and form new ones by consciously changing our routines and rewards. It's a bit like reprogramming our brain's autopilot. So, the next time you find yourself mindlessly reaching for that third cookie, remember the habit loop. Consider what cues are triggering this habit, what routine you're following, and what reward you're seeking. Then, try to change the routine or the reward to break the habit. It's fascinating to see how our brains wire themselves to form habits, isn't it? Not all habits are created equal. A profound truth that we often forget in our quest to reshape our lives. Habits, like the many shades of human characteristics, can be broadly classified into two categories: the good and the bad. As you would have imagined, good habits are ones that make our lives better. They improve our well-being, increase our output, and encourage personal development. Consider doing things like eating a balanced diet, getting enough sleep, reading frequently, or even just making sure you're drinking enough water. These actions, when performed consistently, work together to create a version of you that's healthier, wiser, and more balanced. On the other hand, bad habits are those that are detrimental to our well-being. They hinder our progress, jeopardize our health, and often rob us of our happiness. We're talking about excessive snacking, procrastination, overspending, or spending too much time on social media. These are actions that, when repeated, can lead to stress, anxiety, and a life that feels out of control. However, it's essential to remember that labeling a habit as good or bad is a simplification. In reality, the impact of a habit is highly personal and depends on our individual goals and circumstances. This is when things start to get interesting. Giving up unhealthy behaviors altogether isn't the key to changing our life. You heard correctly. It's about replacement rather than removal. Our brains are wired to follow patterns and routines, and when we try to break a pattern abruptly, it resists, making the change more challenging. So instead of trying to stop a bad habit, focus on replacing it with a good one. If you're used to snacking on junk food while watching TV, replace it with a bowl of fresh fruits. If you find yourself scrolling through social media first thing in the morning, replace it with reading a book or meditating. The journey will be easier to handle, and the transformation more long-lasting when you approach habit modification from the perspective that, remember, it's not about eradicating bad habits, it's about replacing them with better ones. So let's replace rather than remove. Let's produce rather than destroy. Let's form the best kind of habit possible. Now that you understand the science of habits, how can you use this knowledge to your advantage? It's time to move from theory to practice, from understanding to action. Let's delve into the practical side of forming new habits. Firstly, let's revisit the habit loop. Remember it? Cue, routine, reward. This three-step process is the backbone of any habit. Your job is to consciously create this loop for your desired habit. Start by identifying a clear and meaningful cue. It could be a time of day, a location, or an event. For instance, if you want to form a habit of reading every day, your cue might be finishing dinner. Next is the routine, which is the actual habit you want to form. In our example, the routine is reading. Now, here's a tip. Start small. If you aim to read 100 pages a day right from the start, you might feel overwhelmed. Start with a few pages, then gradually increase the volume. Then comes the reward, the sweet cherry on top. This is crucial because it's what your brain craves, and it's what makes the habit stick. Your reward for reading could be a hot cup of tea, or even just the satisfaction of marking off another day in your habit tracker. Now to the importance of consistency, patience, and positive reinforcement. When forming new habits, consistency is essential. Until your new habit becomes second nature, practice it every day. Patience, on the other hand, is accepting that progress might be slow. Moving slowly is preferable to moving at all. And positive reinforcement? That's celebrating your wins, no matter how small. Every page read, every step taken, every day you stick to your habit is a victory. Remember, forming a new habit isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's not about perfection, but progress. Every single day you are building a better version of yourself, one habit at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or in this case, a single habit. Habits are the building blocks of success. This line encapsulates the essence of our journey so far. Now, let's delve into the realm of success where habits play a starring role. Many of the world's high achievers, from business magnates to Olympic athletes, attribute their successes to the power of habits. Take Warren Buffett, for example. He credits his habit of reading 500 pages a day as a key contributor to his financial prowess. The habit, he says, built up knowledge like compound interest. In the world of sports, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time, had a pre-race routine that he followed religiously. This habitual practice enabled him to focus, eliminating distractions, and allowed him to perform at his peak. But success isn't just about the big wins. It's also about the small daily victories that often go unnoticed. Think about the habit of making your bed each morning. Naval Admiral William McRaven famously stated that accomplishing this small task gives you a sense of pride and encourages you to do another task and another and another. It's a ripple effect of productivity that starts with a simple yet powerful habit. So what do these examples tell us? They illustrate that habits are not just about doing something regularly. They're about building a foundation, creating a framework for success. Remember, habits don't have to be grand or daunting. They can be as simple as reading a book for 15 minutes each day, or writing down 3 things you're grateful for every night. Start small and allow these habits to compound over time. As we conclude our exploration of habits, remember this: habits are not just actions that you do, they are a part of who you are. They are the building blocks that shape your character, your actions, and ultimately, your life. Your habits shape your life. Choose them wisely and watch as they transform you into the best version of yourself, my dear students. It is never a one-time, big-time thing. Always do what makes you worthy.